This year at Fairmount, our spiritual focus is Sabbath. We're calling it The Time Is Now, Our Urgent Need for Sabbath.
The world is constantly telling us to have more, to do more, to be more productive, more everything. And this culture of more has led to a cultural disease that we call Zeitkrankheit, a German word that means time sickness.
And we think that this time sickness has saddled us with a heavy load of stress and anxiety. Just listen to these numbers from a study conducted by the American Psychological Association at the end of last year. More than a third of American adults reported that their stress level is completely overwhelming most days. The numbers are worse for Americans with marginalized identities. Women, Black Americans, and people who identify as LGBTQ all report higher than average stress. And the stress is also worse for younger generations. Among Americans under 35, about half report that they're often so stressed that they can't function normally.
So thank goodness that Christmas is right around the corner, right? It's the happiest season of all.
Look, Lindsay, we can probably all agree that Christmas can be a magical season. But when it comes to stress, studies also show that December is actually the most stressful month of the year.
Our calendars get loaded up with parties, events, travel, and other social obligations. And we spend a huge amount of time and energy and money trying to buy the perfect gifts for family and friends. Without fail, every December brings a new holiday retail spending record. This year, Americans will spend about $1 trillion on holiday-related expenses, and about a third of us will take on debt to finance those purchases.
So, what's the treatment for all the stress caused by this time sickness? Sabbath.
But practicing Sabbath in our culture of more isn't easy. And it only gets harder in a season like Advent when there are more demands on our time and our money. Simply put, Sabbath is countercultural.
That's why this Advent we're saying Sabbath is resistance. In other words, to practice Sabbath is to resist the prevailing cultural narrative that being busier and having more is better.
But we're not the first or only people to make this claim. Renowned theologian Walter Brueggemann wrote, "The celebration of Sabbath is an act of both resistance and alternative. It is resistance," he said, "because it is a visible insistence that our lives are not defined by the production and consumption of commodity goods. Such an act of resistance requires enormous intentionality and communal reinforcement amid the barrage of seductive pressures from the insatiable insistences of the market, with its intrusion into every part of our lives."
Here at Fairmount, we've spent the last few months building our foundational knowledge of Sabbath. We've explored what the Sabbath is, how Sabbath is really more than a commandment, it's a gift from God. And we've begun to explore specific Sabbath practices intended to renew our relationships with God and with each other. If you're anything like me, the idea of Sabbath sounds great, but you struggled to integrate rest into your busy life. And so in this season, we'll try to train ourselves how to resist that urge for more.
Over the 4 Sundays of Advent, we'll use Mary's Magnificat as our guiding song, and we'll read the Exodus story, the story of the Israelites' escape from Egypt, as a template for how to say no to the things that prevent us from saying yes to God's Sabbath rest.
When Christmas finally arrives in a few weeks, will we be spent from the stress of the season?
What if instead we slowed down and rested this Advent?
What if we resisted the consumerism of Christmas?
What if we dreamed and dared to imagine a different kind of Advent and Christmas?
If you need some support and guidance on how to do that, we encourage you to read Rest is Resistance by Tricia Hersey, a book that we'll be reading along with members of Forest Hill and St. Mark's, a book that will invite us to together learn to resist so that we can rest, dream, and imagine. We leave you with this blessing from the author.
We wish you rest today.
We wish you a deep knowing that exhaustion is not a normal way of living.
You are enough.
You can rest.
You must resist anything that doesn't center your divinity as a human being.
You are worthy of care.
Alleluia.
Amen.